Hi, it's Thad with Willow Way Nurseries in Avon, Ohio. It's November 15th. We're over at our distribution center today, talk about kind of storage of plants for the winter and some important things. We have been really kind of on a little bit of a above normal trend here, and it looks like it's going to hold that way into next week and towards the end of the month. So that kind of changes some of our game plans. We were going to do some blowout. We backed all that up. But some things we got to think about differently is how do we take care of the plants now and make sure they go into winter with the best ability to survive the winter. So there's some things I wanted to talk about as this house, as we walk down through it. But some of the first things here is the Phlox subulata is semi-evergreen. And some of the things we really got to look at is making sure this goes into winter well watered. And we have to check the water regularly through the winter and make sure it does not dry out. If it dries out, it burns the foliage and you're gonna have a less saleable plant come into spring. So really what we do as growers, come down through, we look at it, we wanna make sure that it's moist all the way through. You can see it's got a nice dark color there. This has got good moisture to it. Feel really good about where these are at. Sometimes too, we wanna put these on a little bit of a light space. Because they're evergreen, if they're left down in, it kind of dries that piece up. On the other side of me, we've got ferns. As you can see, they're kind of going dormant right now. We do not trim these this time of year. Plants that have a crown, we tend to wait till more later in the season to trim those. So we're looking more like February to mid-February to start that. Kind of depends on what the weather's doing. So those are a couple of things to look for. Ferns that are yellow all the way done versus ferns that are dark color are going to have different water requirements, so we have to kind of watch what we're doing there. I'm looking at what stage is it at. So stuff that's still green and kind of active, I don't really want to cut a lot of that back at this point. We're still early enough in the season and saleable. Our distribution centers are open, going to be open through till the end of December, kind of year round, but it's on a call ahead if you have questions or they can get your order ready. Obviously, we're going to have a good selection of material. Stuff's still going to be available in these houses where we can get access to it. So that's something else to just put in there that we'll have stuff available. The thing I wanted to talk about was the dianthus. So you can see these have flowers on them. This one also, I want to check the water, make sure we're good. We've got good moisture there. But these flower heads are a real magnet for botrytis. So what we do is early on here in the fall, this is one of the first ones we'll come in and trim all these flower heads off. We don't want to get down into the foliage, but all these flowers get trimmed off here in the fall as we're putting stuff away here, November, December, kind of the early part of the year here. So that's one that you want to take care of for disease management. Some of the other things we look at trimming back right now, daylilies, anything that's kind of starting to shut down or closer to shut down. We've got hosta. Hosta typically we don't do anything with until later, but if you can pull the foliage out of these and kind of clean them up, they come apart real easy. If we wait until later in the year, sometimes we can just take a rake over large groups and pull all that right off with a rake and clean it up. So just some different ways of managing what kind of labor you're putting into cleaning up your perennials. As we move down a little bit further, we've got Pachysandra. It's another evergreen. Want to make sure we're good and moist there, got good roots. So that's going into winter. This is one you're going to have to keep track of all, and also a little bit of a space on it so it's not can to can all the way. Really help you have a really nice plant for coming out in the spring. So that's a little bit in this house. We'll catch some other houses and talk a little more about winter storage. All right, it's that again. We're in a different house. I want to talk a little bit about some of the plants in here. So we've got echinacea, coneflower. You can see this isn't fully dormant, but this is one of the perennials we wait till February to trim. This is a warm season plant, so it does its best in midsummer when it's really hot out. We really worry about having the roots kind of dry, or not dry, but be damaged if we trim it too early. So we really let that one kind of go. Conversely, so we've got two types of sedums. We've got more of a creeping sedum, which we don't do anything right now. This one's held up a little bit till more midwinter. But some of the upright sedums that kind of died back, we'll come and cut these back at this point now. So they're one that we would cut back. Sedums also, if you have a lot of them, and it tends to be kind of wet, it might be good to do like a fungicide drench on them to help with any kind of root rots and a little bit of the winter storage. So that's something that we're doing here, and helping us get a little more protection on them for the winter. So yarrow's kind of coming to the end, but I really don't want to cut this back at this point. And the reason is if I cut this back, sometimes it will initiate new growth to come. And so we really want to let this thing go to sleep and get more consistent cold weather. Especially being inside a plastic covered house, it tends to kind of moderate the temperature exchange. So that's one that we want to be careful of. Nepeta is another one. If we trim it, we could encourage new flush, and if it got really cold, could damage the plant itself. So on the other hand, like daylilies, you can see these are pretty much kind of going dormant. We can trim this back, clean it up a little bit. Tend to have a little bit of one of the reasons we like to trim it, we're trimming it in the fall, is sometimes this gets going really early. When we get those early March days, it get really warm and we get new growth started. Well, you've got the new growth coming, you got to kind of pick it off. It actually adds more work. So your work efficiency on trimming something like this goes way down. All right, we've moved a few houses down. We're now down in one of our evergreen and broadleaf evergreen houses. We have boxwood in this house along with Japanese yews, and some upright forms, spreaders. All of these need to have adequate water. You don't want these going into winter dry. Also, it's really important to be monitoring the water like we talked about in the first house through the winter. If these start to dry out a little bit, you need to get water into them. Otherwise, you'll get winter burn where the tips start to brown out and not look as good, so it can really impact your saleability. You can make it, and that generally happens, a lot of times we see that winter burn start to show up in March, but it's really was systematic earlier on, where it either went in the fall dry or dried out over the winter time, and then March you're really just seeing the damage from it. And at that point, when you see the damage, it's a salvage or try to limit how much injury you're going to get from it. So preemptive to be out with water as much as possible here and really load them up. So we do want extra water on our evergreens this time of year just to keep them fully hydrated and really going into winter full loaded with their water capacity. Okay, we hopped over to one of our rose houses here, set for winter. Several things you need to know about this house is roses we don't do a winter trim on, we do an early spring. Really when the leaves drop off or start to drop off, we'll trim these back. A lot of roses will kind of grow here fairly late in the year. Some of the varieties will get some winter dieback in the tips because they really don't shut off well, and especially under plastic. So that's why we hold off on it until spring. Also, it's kind of the shaping and getting it ready for that new flush to come out. We do handle roses several different ways within Willowway. So we do some different staged like heating or warming them up so that we've got kind of a split crop out of them. So some things we've already kind of put in bed, spaced out. We turn the heat on a little bit and we manage the venting of the house to kind of bring them on. So those are for our real early shipping and customers that have ability to protect it from frost, or some of our southern customers that need stuff that's a little more ahead of some of the other stuff. So we have two different split heated forced crops, and then we have natural crop that's out as well. Most of the roses do not require heat to winter. We do use a plastic on it. I talked about that several videos back, about at certain temperatures we pull plastic over them to keep the ground heat on so that they kind of minimizes the temperature extreme change. And we can kind of maintain about a 33, 34 degree a lot of times underneath that plastic, even into January, into February when we do it. But we do pull that back over. And one of the important things to realize is these leaves still can get you black spot, can still get botrytis, or downy mildew is probably one of the bigger concerns I have at this point. And being in the house, if you get a lot of disease, those leaves drop and you can come back onto the new foliage that's coming. So we do start spray programs as well. These still are getting fungicide treatments to keep them looking as best as possible at this point. So thanks. Hopefully all this helps and helps you have a successful time wintering all your plants on your yards. Hey, one shot here outside. As you can see behind me, we have a lot of material still available for landscape into the fall here. We are open through December at all our distribution centers, and they actually have all through the winter. Just call, make sure that we have your stuff pulled or we have access to it right away. But we have a lot of B&B material that's coming in. We're still putting fresh stuff onto the yards, so we have a full plethora of material you might need.